you got to embrace it. I think you got
Well,
to like figure out how to make it work for you,
not only
figure out how to
embrace it,
make
you
it.
have to know it. So you know
Yeah.
when you're going into. There was another thing that you know, know that what your type is, and every once in a while you'll get sent in for something that you're like the polar opposite of, and you just give it your best audition because every once in a while they go against stereotypes. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Outsiders.
I'm Seth Austin.
And I am Todd Pickering.
And we're a couple of actors stuck on the outside trying to make our way to the inside of the biz.
Hollywood, baby.
Today, we are going to give you our email address first. That is the Outsiders, biz@gmail.com. If you would like to communicate with us about anything, email us at the Outsiders, biz@gmail.com.
Have you checked it lately?
Yeah, because it's linked to my regular email account, so it automatically gets checked. Today
Hi,
we're going to talk
everyone.
about typecasting, and we're going to talk about what that really means, and we're going to talk about how it can be good and bad, and all that kind of stuff. So you hear the term thrown around quite a lot, right? Typecasting. What type am I? What do you see me as? What would I be cast as? What are my types? And I'm going to leave this off. I'm going to read what I found, a dictionary definition of typecasting. To assign an actor or actress repeatedly to the same type of role as a result of the appropriateness of their appearance or previous success in such roles. In quotes, he tends to be typecast as caring, intelligent male. And then the second definition is represent or regard a person or their role as a stereotype. People are not as likely to be typecast by their accents as they once were. That's the quote on the second one. So
Stereotype.
right.
That's another offshoot.
So type, they don't say this directly, but I believe that the word type comes from stereotype, right? It's like, what stereotypes is this person? So for instance, for me, you look at me, and if I don't open my mouth, you might think cancer patient or neo-Nazi, or I don't know. I often get like, intense like bad guy, or genius bad guy, like evil mad scientist type, especially if I shave. And for Todd, it would be drunken Irishman, right? I mean,
I've never played a drunken Irishman.
Well, that's a type that's misused or not used well enough. You gotta dip your toe into that drunken Irishman cast.
In acting class, we did the exercise where you stand, the teacher just interviews you.
Yeah.
So you kind of relax and you're yourself, because, that's huge these days too. Be yourself. They're always saying to the point of overacting, in my opinion, sometimes. More like yourself. I'm like, I can't not be anything but myself because I'm here.
Yeah.
And as you're doing this, what I'm just doing right now, everybody starts writing and writing. The number one thing I got all around was Disney Dad.
Yeah. I mean, there it is. Yeah. The orange hair, you're upbeat, you're energetic. Yeah. That's perfect.
And she said, sorry that, but I put that too. I go, sorry, I'll do a Disney show.
Yeah.
It's regular work.
So that's the thing, right? Is there's two aspects, or two ways that people look at typecasting generally, right? It can be a really bad thing, like, oh, I can't break out of this role. Like, George Costanza, Jason Alexander on Seinfeld, he was so associated with George that he really couldn't get cast as anything else.
Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, and they to the point where they even like put it in Curb Your Enthusiasm. He's in Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he's talking to Larry David and saying, this George thing, I can't break out of it. And that, it happens to a lot of actors. On the other hand, Jason Alexander probably never, not probably, the dude never has to work again. None of that cast does.
Oh, right? Yeah, he had a career before that. He was a stage actor, and he sings. Right. He was in musicals. Right. So, I mean, yeah, so hopefully he's had a good career.
Right.
In
But
the
he
sense that
never, if you're so associated with something like that, that means that you've done really well, right? I mean, you've hit a point where like you're everybody knows you as a particular character. And so, Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek said he played Riker, I think was the character's name. This happened to a lot of Star Trek actors,
in
right?
the one with Patrick Stewart, right?
Yeah,
His
with
second
Patrick
in
Stewart.
command.
And Jonathan Frakes
Yep.
said, well, it's better to be typecast than not cast at all.
Ah, there's a great. I put that on our Instagram.
Yeah, because you're working, right? If you're typecast, even if you're playing the same role over and over again, you're working. And let's be realistic. If you're working a lot, then you're doing more than pretty much every other actor that's in the union. I mean, it's like what, 1% of union actors make a living acting. So, um, you
I'll be
know,
typecast.
not to be mean about it, but be grateful that you're getting cast at all, So I actually had this happen to me very early on. Like I kept getting cast as like the bad guy, the mad scientist. And like, it's like, well, if I'm getting the roles, then just, I had to tell myself, just be grateful that I'm getting the roles, man.
Mad scientist is fun.
Yeah. And especially when you're first starting out, right? Like getting typecast is a way to get in, right? If you know what the industry sees you as, then you can focus on getting those roles and not worry about, oh, I have to be this super versatile actor who can do everything, right? That can come later on, maybe when you're a little bit more seasoned, when you have more clout and more things under your belt, like Jim Carrey, right? What did he do for a very long time? He was his Jim Carrey thing. He was a bunch of zany, crazy, over the top characters, from Fire Marshal Bill to Ace Ventura. And then he settled down, he got really popular, and he was able to do things like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, right?
Right.
And then
Was
go
it
back to being Jim Carrey again.
we talked about this in another episode. I think it was you just read Michael Shurtleff's audition, right?
I did.
He talks about the term stereotype. People always go, don't stereotype me. It's like, well, you have to put the qualifier of negative or positive in front of it. A stereotype is neither negative nor positive. It just is. So if you're going to play a prostitute, I think is the example he uses, he says, work through the stereotype. Just start with, I'm a prostitute. What does that mean?
Right.
You do all those things. Then you can shove that aside and go, okay, what does she want? Who is she as a person? Who's her mom? Who is she in love with this person? Then you can get rid of it, but you got to work through it because she's a prostitute. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
So the stereotype, start with the stereotype as a fact and then see what the difference is, what makes her different than in every single prostitute in the world. And because that's what we're going for.
Yeah. And find the humanity underneath it and all that, of course.
And so stereotype and typecast are the same thing?
I mean, yeah, I think, like I said, one comes from the other. That's like where the word typecasting comes from. So, it's
Stereotype.
What's that?
I'm just thinking out loud. Stereotype. Stereo means multiple type. Stereo too. Whatever. But whatever.
I don't know.
Yeah. So they're the same thing.
Etymological on it here.
That's what we're gonna say.
Yeah, but I guess I think the big takeaway here is it's not necessarily a bad thing, and if early on, if that's all you're getting and you're still not making it in, then maybe try to break out. But like, look at like Leslie Nielsen, right? He used to be like the sort of straight leading man type, serious. And then he used that same sort of thing, but made it into zany, over the top parody satire, right? And then that's just what he did for the rest of his career.
He got stereotyped as that, really. And if you watch his acting in it, he's as earnest as he's playing his comedy it's amazing. So
right.
That's just how he got some of his most famous work through that. And comedy's harder than drama. So not bad thing.
If you look at even the leading types, like Jennifer Lawrence, for instance, right?
Okay.
I would argue that even she is, like, a lot of the leads like her are typecast, right? The first thing that put her on the map was Winter's Bone. Yeah. And in that film, she plays a young girl who, because of circumstances and her past and things, has to sort of grow up prematurely and be more mature than would normally be expected of someone her age, and kind of, take control and lead, her family and stuff, right? And that's more or less, that's the kind of character that she has continued to play for pretty much her entire career. Now, the projects are often very different, but I mean, she's a leading
Hmm.
woman, but like she has greatly benefited from that, being very good at
Yeah.
one thing that is also very interesting, and just banked on it over and over again. Because you could then look at the Hunger Games, right? I mean, that's sort of what that character is too. Not sort of, that is what that character is, right? She's a young girl who's put in these heightened circumstances that are forcing her to grow up
Yep.
prematurely and be more mature than someone her age. It's the same role over and over again. So, I keep saying this, but I think
Hmm.
you got to embrace it. I think you got
Well,
to like figure out how to make it work for you,
not only
figure out how to
embrace it,
make
you
it.
have to know it. So you know
Yeah.
when you're going into. There was another thing that you know, know that what your type is, and every once in a while you'll get sent in for something that you're like the polar opposite of, and you just give it your best audition, because every once in a while they go against stereotype. Ooh, that
This
segued
is
nicely.
this is the thing I wanted to talk about. I thank you for bringing it up.
Cool. I did
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The point is that you probably won't book it, and you know that going in. And sometimes that books it because you think you won't book it, um, but you're still being seen by casting directors, and you're respected, and you know what your shtick is. So you're like, hey, my chances are less on this one, but it's still another acting opportunity, and work through the.
Yeah. I mean, very often playing against type is done for comedy, right? Let's take someone who is so stereotypically this other thing and put them in a role that is never their thing, and it becomes comedic. Or I suppose it could also be the opposite. It could be for dramatic effect, right?
Exactly. Jim
And
Carrey, you mentioned. There's some.
right, exactly. So you go in, you might go in thinking, oh, I'm not right for this at all, this is not what I ever get, and they may very specifically be looking to do exactly that, to be giving you a role that you don't ever get, to make whatever vision they have come alive for their project. Could be a very specific choice to be casting against type. um,
Well,
you
look
know
at Robert Redford was offered the role in The Graduate, and it went to Dustin Hoffman. Put those two actors side by side.
that's interesting. And I mean, the casting of The Graduate is a whole thing. We could a whole episode just on that, because
Sure.
what's his name from
Mike
from
Nichols.
no, from Beethoven, Charles Grodin, was this close to getting it as well. But anyway, like look at someone like who was I just thinking of? Robin Williams, for a very long
I thought of
time,
that too.
broadly comedic. He's a comedian, high energy, a lot of sitcoms, Mork and Mindy. And then, occasionally would get cast as something seriously dramatic, like 5 hour photo. Oh, no, sorry, 5 hour, 1 hour photo. He played a complete psycho, like
Yes, I think I
like
said that.
creeping on people's photos and stuff.
Yes, I did see that
Um,
movie. Oh my god, I
so
forgot
talk
about that.
about playing against type. It's actually a pretty darn good movie.
Yeah.
Or even The World According to Garp. He plays like the button-down young man in that film, which is completely against type, and he does it brilliantly.
But
Um,
it's but who's the writer?
John
Irving.
Irving. Yeah,
John Irving, thank you.
yeah.
He's very quirky and very bizarre, so that was a nice segue.
It's a good point. Yeah.
The piece itself was quirky enough that we were like, well, just buy him in this. And yeah, So I mean,
Adam
that's.
Sandler. Adam Sandler. Punch Drunk Love and Uncut Gems, which I still haven't seen, but I know what they were doing with that, right?
Mm,
Adam Sandler is, I love Adam Sandler, for the record, generally speaking. Like, I
yeah,
didn't love his later stuff, but like Billy Madison, some of the earlier stuff,
yeah.
that's my jam. And then you take him and put him in a Paul Thomas Anderson film, Punch Drunk Love. But as you said, Todd, like
Hmm.
it's just quirky enough, that role, right? So Adam Sandler is over the top comedy, and then gets put in this dramatic, like this guy has a psychosis. 1 minute he's understated and sad, and the next minute he's flying off the handle with unmitigated rage. And but because of the way the film is done, and because Adam Sandler actually is a good actor, like it all comes together brilliantly. And then I think the same thing kind of in Uncut Gems, which I need to watch.
They're like segue roles, I would call it. There's another term.
Yeah.
Segue.
Yeah.
Like you jump into one and then somebody will give you another chance because Robin Williams won the Oscar for
Good Will Hunting, right? And
right?
that's unmitigatedly serious.
Right.
That's not. There's nothing really quirky or in between about that role.
But there's a sparkle in his eye. There's that same sparkle in his eye and that same sense of humor because he always has to bring himself all subdued. But my point is that it segues into it, and he brings the touch of humor and joy to that character.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, totally deserving Oscar in my opinion. Like, just Robin Williams proved himself to be a great actor. So,
and one of the most brilliant performers to ever live. I mean,
yes,
frankly,
I think so.
Yeah, doesn't get any better than that man. Yeah. So that's
how do we wrap up talking about what advice?
That's typecasting, right? I've said
embrace it.
Embrace it. I've said it like a bunch of times already, and that's I think the main thing. Like, don't let it limit you. Don't look down upon it. That said, if you're getting cast over and over again and you're still working for free doing it, I could see if you get sick of it, you eventually want to get paid to do your craft, but in general, embrace it. And, try to figure out how you can make it different. Like, yes, you're going to play the psycho. Yes, you're going to play the thug, whatever, but how can you bring the humanity to it? As sort of Todd was saying, right? You start with the basic framework, and then how can you bring your own thing to it to make it interesting so that it doesn't just feel like you're playing the same role over and over again,
Well, it goes back to what we said about taking acting class and there's the spot where you're handed a scene and go, oh, I'll never book this, but so really work hard on it. A lot of people in acting class only want the roles that they're stereotyped into, and I think that's
so they don't
the
have to work
point of
hard.
an acting class is you should be doing some scenes that are not your typecast, because even you could be the hard-bitten detective, but you book that series regular, let's talk big, and the second season the hard-bitten detective falls in love and becomes a softie. So don't think you're characters have to go through changes, so you should study a little bit of everything against your type. So
can you take those given circumstances and live truthfully under them, right? No matter what they are. Even if it's not your bread and butter.
It could be.
All right, everybody. Hope you're doing well out there in this pandemic. That's all. It's all from Seth and Todd for today.
We gave you a lot to work with. We gave you a book. We gave you
it's a lot.
Adam Sandler movies, Robin Williams movies to watch. We gave you homework.
Everyone
Go
loves
out
homework.
there.
Don't think of it as homework. Think of it as enjoying films. Email us at theoutsidersbiz@gmail.com. I'm going to plug my movie that just came out. It's called Unbelievable. It is an over-the-top. Speaking of Star Trek actors, it's got a ton of old Star Trek actors in it. It's completely ridiculous.
Yep.
It's fun though. I watched it. It's fun. It gets a little long, and then they make a joke about how it's getting too long. It's super silly. Rent it on Amazon for like $5 and have a good time. All right, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.